everybody, and welcome to episode 23 of the Shinesparkers podcast. And welcome, Roy and Darren. We're so happy to have you back on the show. Metroid Dread recently won Best Action Adventure Game from Famitsu, and then it got nominated for a BAFTA. So big congratulations to MercurySteam.
Well done. That's fantastic to hear.
All right, so for this episode, we will be digging into two very important topics. The first being video game preservation and how Nintendo's recent announcement on the closure of the Wii U and 3DS eShop will impact a significant number of Metroid titles, limiting ways fans can legally obtain them.
It's true. It's a poor move, but it's nothing new. Nintendo have always done this with their online shops from the Wii era, which they actually closed a few years ago fully, to the point where you cannot even re-download the games that you bought. So at the minute, you will still be able to re-download things if you own them. But if you're thinking long-term in the future, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, that your games aren't always going to be there. So if you lose them, you've lost them, which I don't think is very good. So yeah, there's some problems that I have there, and I know a lot of people online were quite vocal about that. I do feel that there should be an alternative to preserving those games. Like, I really feel that the Virtual Console should exist on the Switch so that you can obtain those games. In an ideal world, they're tied to your account, right? You should be able to re-download them for free on the Switch. I don't understand why in a modern era we can't do that, but it's all about cost.
Especially since we can do that on the PS5.
Yeah. When the eShop closes, the only way of obtaining any kind of classic content is through a service, which Nintendo can just close at any point. You will no longer own a game from that era, because all the digital games that you owned, you can't purchase them anymore. And in terms of Metroid, all the games except for the original Metroid and Super Metroid and Metroid Dread, they're the only ones that are going to be available. Every other game is currently either physical copies or digital copies on those eShops. Once they're gone, that is it. It's kind of concerning, especially when we've had Metroid Dread and it's encouraged fans to go back and play other games from the series. The eShop on the Wii U, the top two games was Fusion and Zero Mission. I know that Hunters was in there and the trilogy, and it's just sad that those games are not going to be accessible for people to download. So unless you've already downloaded them, that's it.
It makes no sense to me. So they put out Dread, and then they don't have Fusion available on the Switch for people to play who are new to the series. And a few months after Dread comes out, they're now pulling the Wii U eShop, which is the only place now where you can buy Fusion. Because if you weren't fortunate enough to get the Ambassador program on 3DS and get Fusion that way, then you're stuck. You either have to shill out for it's got to be like $300 now, GBA cartridge.
And the GBA itself, if you don't have a GBA or you don't have any of the other hardware, you have to buy that hardware as well.
True, and that gets even more expensive.
And I know you personally, Roy, as well, you've actually gone back and purchased a lot of content from those eShops before it closes.
Yes, I recently spent far too much money buying a lot of 3DS and Wii U games that will no longer be available once the shops close. All the Metroid games, the Phoenix Wright games, Pushmo, tons of others.
A lot of those smaller titles as well that were only ever released on those platforms, they're gone forever. Right. And it was the case with WiiWare and DSiWare when those closed as well. Gone. Just all that content is not accessible anymore. And it's just really sad. Yeah. So I hope that something happens between then and now where they'll say, oh yeah, we'll put the Virtual Console on the Switch, but it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen, unfortunately. And Nintendo only drip feed content to their fans. I'm pretty sure that there'll be new hardware after the Switch, and Super Mario Brothers will be that one game that you'll get on day one, and then you might get The Legend of Zelda a month later, and then you might get, I don't know, Mario Brothers 2 a month after that, and it will be drip fed to you again. And they will continue to do this. And it's such a backwards anti-consumer thing. Disagree with Nintendo's decision on this as highly as possible. All of your legal means of owning a game is either going to be inaccessible or very, very expensive. And it doesn't leave you with many other options.
So video game preservation is just super important to me because video games are an art form, no different than literature, no different than film, music. It is a storytelling medium. And to not have access to those classic games means that people that are just now getting into gaming, kids now, that are playing like Metroid or Pokemon for the first time in its like current generation of it, won't have access to see how it came to be. They won't have access to see its origin. We won't, without access to Mother, which is basically the reason why we have Pokemon, you wouldn't know where it came from. And to me, limiting the ability to play classic games would be like saying that you can't read this classic literature anymore because, it's out of print. There needs to be some form of whether it's online capabilities that are legal or, some kind of like a library system. Because if movies can be at the library, then I feel like video games should be as well. The problem would be stealing them because of how much people can get for a video game. So like some form of like, I don't know, temporary download or something if you want to like check it out from an online library or something like that, or have like an online library card that would allow you to play them. Even just like to play it for a few days and just so you can kind of get a feel for it, because it's also important for people wanting to go into a video game field, like wanting to develop games. They need to see where it started and get ideas from that and understand where a Metroidvania game pulls from. If a person's never played Metroid or Super Metroid or Castlevania, and then they play, Hollow Knight or Ori, and then they didn't realize, this style of game has been around for a long time. What makes it work? What's the origin of this game? So that's why, to me, it's so important to just preserve video games. And, I think the digital way of doing it is the most efficient way of doing it, because that's, how people can hold on to music for so long. And I, of course, love having the physical copies. And there needs to be a legal way of doing so. And to take that away is just, it's like taking someone's favorite book or movie away, really. And it's just... when I don't like take the idea of just taking art away from somebody, and that's what a video game is. It's art. It's a merging of like several different art forms, and it's one of those things that like when I find out it's no longer available, like it just bothers me so much, because like my favorite games are from the NES era, and like my absolute favorite game ever is Super Mario Brothers 3, and that's one that I would want everybody to be able to play at some point in their life, just because it's so much fun. And then it's early days of platformers, and then you play a platformer now to see how far it's come, to see like that game's influence on future titles is so important. And that's my thoughts on it. It's a lot more needs to be done. There needs to be more, video games have been around for a long time. It's not something that was just a fad. It's, been around, 70s, 80s, or when they first really started becoming available.
Probably even earlier than that.
Yeah.
Pong, for example.
Exactly. So, if there's classic movies if movies from that era are considered classics, then there are video games from that era that are considered classics. Those should be more accessible to people. And it's a way people can experience storytelling. It's a way people can experience, others' incredibly hard work, and then just to spend time with family playing, those classic games is a lot of fun. And it's a really good bonding experience for people.
Yeah, like parents with their children, like, oh, this is what I played growing up, this is what I want you to check out. I used to play this, and then, oh, no, your game's not there anymore. It's really sad. And you did mention Mother recently, and I'm really pleased that has recently come to the Nintendo Online. And I've played both of them, and they're great games. But eventually that service is going to end. Nintendo will end that service. You didn't ever buy those games. You only paid for a subscription to access that library. So you don't actually buy a game anymore. You're buying a service. And that's kind of concerning. I always see people comment saying, oh yeah, you're getting this game for free. You can get this extra thing for free. It's not. You're paying for the service and they're giving you these things, but they're also going to take them away from you as soon as they decide that that service is no longer profitable. And, that service can also raise in price as well. If you want continued access to that, they might bump it up in price. It's not just Nintendo, but it feels like Nintendo doesn't really care too much about that at the moment, and time will judge whether this is still the case, but it seems like Xbox is doing a really good job at trying to preserve their games. They're making all the old games accessible on newer hardware and backwards compatibility, and I think that's really, really good. I just hope it continues.
They stopped that. They did add one final batch of games, but they've said that that's it.
Right, okay. The point that I'm making, Roy, is that a good 80% of Metroid games are not going to be accessible for people after they've just launched a Metroid title, and a really big upcoming Metroid title as well, where people are going to want to maybe play the original trilogy. And
right, they're going to be missing part of the story without having access to those games.
Yeah, let's presume that Metroid Prime 4 is going to be released in 2023. It's likely it's going to be after the eShop has closed. So where are you going to get your trilogy from? I mean, Nintendo, release Metroid Prime games now. By all means, release the first 3 again. A lot of Metroid fans that started with Dread are not going to be able to try out the other games. There should be a library that continues to grow and moves with new hardware.
Another point I'd like to raise is that in some cases, there were difficult working conditions on some games. So for those games where there was crunch, for instance, and the game turned out to be, a masterpiece, if it's not available anymore, what did they put all their blood, sweat, and tears in for? And then, poof, it's gone.
All right, well, next up for discussion is accessibility in Metroid games. So there have definitely been a lot said about the accessibility on Metroid, how Nintendo handles accessibility versus other platforms like PlayStation and Xbox, and just different ways that more people can play it. Because what is it that they say at Xbox, when everyone plays, we all win, something like that. I'm botching that quote. I can't remember the quote, but it's important to be able to have as many people who could be able to play it as possible. Because it's fun. It's a game, and I'd hate for somebody to not be able to play a game just because they can't see these 2 colors well.
We were talking about that in the last episode with Kynan. And someone responded to it on Twitter. They said that they played with their dad, who I think, Darren, you might remember this better. They said that their dad was colorblind or something. And when they were fighting Metroid Prime, for instance, and Metroid Prime changes color. So he would call out which beam to switch to. So it was like he was helping him in that way.
Yeah, I mean, that's cute, but is it obvious looking at the screen what those are? Because normally it's not just colors, is it? There's like shapes or some other prompts.
Well, for Prime, there's like symbols with hand icons. But in the case of like knowing which color beam you have to use to shoot, then I guess he wouldn't know.
It's a nice thing to do, bring see people closer together through video games, which is positive, but it's on a topic that is a little bit sad. The fact that someone who's colorblind doesn't have the same opportunities as someone that can see every color. It's a little bit disappointing. Games should keep that in mind. I've played, I think, Mario Party recently. I think some of the older Mario Party games didn't really take color blindness into consideration, whereas on the Switch, I know that there's like patterns. I can't remember the minigame. It's that one where you stand on platforms, and they're different colors, and each of those have like a different pattern to them, so it's like stripes or circles or something like that, so you would know which one to jump on. I think that's the one. I'm trying to think. I might be misremembering, but yeah, the point is like there's other options. If you can't see the colors, there is another way for you to identify where you need to go and what you need to do, so you're not at a disadvantage.
And it's one of those things that can benefit anybody playing it. Like when there's multiple ways of being able to see, so to speak, where to go or what to do. Like, if you're playing in low light, or if you're just not really paying it all that attention and you're just kind of wanting to chill and play, it's helpful.
I was thinking if there was a colorblind mode added to like a Prime remaster or Prime 4, maybe what they could do is for people who are colorblind, they could have a setting where instead of a door being color coded, you would look at the door and then there'd be something on the HUD that flashes showing the symbol of the beam that you have to use. And then they'd be able to know what they need to use to open the door or power the machinery or whatever, or what beam to use on the boss.
The doors could be different shapes. Have a triangular door to go through.
That could also work. In Dread, they have different looking door obstructions to kind of differentiate instead of just one door is purple.
Yeah, they're not just a different color.
Yeah.
Which is probably the reason why they are that way, which is great.
Yes.
I have a friend who is blind, and I had a chat with him before we recorded this, and he said that some of the things that could be improved on from Nintendo's point of view when it comes to games is things like audio cues, haptics, descriptive scenes and areas to build a picture with, and closed captions. I know that other companies offer different ways of accessing their games. Like you can have captions, and you can change the speed of the way that the text is read, and there's more descriptive text, I guess, in some games. I'll just say this, I don't play a lot of PlayStation and Xbox games, but what I've read, it seems like they're doing a better job at making their games more accessible than what Nintendo has been doing. And something that I praise massively is Xbox's adaptive controller, and how you can do all kinds of stuff with that. I think that's really cool, and it's it is an attractive price point, which I think is really great. And I know that Sony's got a whole section on their website that lists all the different accessibility features as well. I'm just looking through it now. Display and inverting colors, color correction, text size, speech speed, and I also like as well, just going back to Nintendo, because there is some accessibility there. With Pokemon games, modern Pokemon games, you can change the volume of sound effects and music, and you can adjust them exactly how you want them. The customization should be there for all games, and that benefits everyone. In their controllers, they have haptic feedback, also known as HD Rumble, which could absolutely be used in so many games to show when you've got a more intense scene coming up or something, or if there's an enemy that's going to be quite difficult, or you need to move out of the way or something. Maybe there's certain types of vibrations that can happen, and I don't really think that's being utilized, and it's sad, and I'd like that to change. Yeah, I just wish that there was some extra things in games on platforms like the Switch that would make things easier for people like him.
I'm a big fan of haptics as like a way to be like, hey, this is something important to pay attention to, because like, let's say, you're playing the Switch and you've got the sound turned off because you're like on a plane or something, you didn't bring your headphones or whatever, when you're trying to do something, you can't hear this audio cue, so it helps to be able to feel it instead. So that's one of the things about haptics and accessibility, that's like it's a double thing. It helps people who don't necessarily need it for daily life, but it also helps people that wouldn't have any other possible way to do it. And then having something reading all the text on the screen, well, that also means more work for voice actors. So that's another double win there to me. And then closed captions is always helpful, because again, you don't always have the sound turned on. You don't always have it turned up. Sometimes it's just really hard to understand what like it's kind of hard to hear what they're saying anyways, just like understand it, especially if it's like a big like major dramatic plot point or something. There's a lot going on, and just being able to change the size of the text is also a great thing, because that can that depends on the size of the monitor you're playing it on, or how close you're sitting to the television or whatever. Like, if I'm sitting way back, I can't see that tiny little text at the bottom, but if I can make it bigger, that helps everybody right there.
Yeah, and being able to customize your controller as well to have buttons that suit you, I think is a great idea, but I don't really see a lot of that on Nintendo. I think other platforms you can change your layout of different buttons and things. Maybe it's game dependent, but I feel like that should be a standard. You should be able to set your controls like you can on PC. I feel like if it happened to me, how would I feel if I couldn't experience a game? Like if I lost my hearing and I couldn't hear what's being said, but I might be able to get some descriptive text that might describe the scene, or if I lost my sight, having vibrations and better sound control would be beneficial to me.
Yeah, I think there needs to be a lot more options just in general that help as many people as possible play. Even if traditional gamers who don't, let's say, need accessibility might think that, it cheapens the game. No, it opens it up to some people, and these are options. So
they don't have to use it.
Right. They're not in the game for you.
I always liked the idea of, in Metroid Prime, if they made a trilogy for the Switch, if you was charging up, say, an ice beam and you were using the Joy-Cons, if you could feel ice traveling through the controller.
Oh, that would be so cool.
Oh.
Or if you're using the plasma beam and you just felt like the flow of lava or something flow through it, like the types of vibrations. There's so much control over that with the HD Rumble. It would be great if people who couldn't see clearly could experience things like that. It'd be great for everybody anyway. It'd just be such a neat addition.
All right, well, let's go ahead and move on to the mailbag. So last episode, we asked you guys, what video game genres do you think Metroid could explore in the future? And you guys answered, and here's what some of you guys had to say. Well, Metroid is Godlike 77 says a visual novel. That'd be cool. I would play that. I like this one from Real Nindy Buzz. What about a point-and-click adventure game? I'm Samus Threepwood, Mighty Bounty Hunter. That was quite a creative answer.
Oh my god, I would love that so much.
I'd play it.
Yeah.
I don't know if it would have the same appeal as other genres today. Maybe if it was released in the early 90s, maybe.
Well, it would have to be a modern interpretation. So,
yeah.
And I think you'd have to have some sort of Metroid flair in it, so that even if it isn't a Metroidvania-style gameplay, it still feels like a Metroid title.
It could work.
I think it could.
Go something along the lines of like, Life is Strange is kind of a point and click, so that it's just an evolved form of one. So I say it works.
Yeah, you could do something like that.
Gladrak says a Metroid Fusion remake a la Resident Evil would be so amazing. I agree. A lot of you guys want horror type games like survival horror. I could see that. That would work really well. I still want my Stardew Valley inspired Metroid games where you raise little baby Metroids. That's what I want. And then I think I mentioned it last episode where you milk the Metroids and get Metroid jelly, just like on SpongeBob. That's what I want. I'm bringing that back.
I should have deleted that episode.
Never. Angel Aaron, that's me, says, no, I'm not Angel Aaron. I'm just telling you that's what it says. Okay. That's the Twitter name, not me saying it. Anyways, it says, no idea. Cute Metroid game? Yes, I vote for cute Metroid game. True Blood horror game? I would also like that. Open world game? Yes, I would like that. So many others I can't think of right now. You know what? I like all your answers, so, go for it. Overlord X says, what if a Fallout type game, but every time you start a new game, you crash on a procedurally generated planet. You find all your gear and then beat the final boss of that planet. I like that because I like the idea of a Fallout.
I do like that idea.
Yeah. Let's see. Bat says puzzle. What if there was an entire game that was just Shinespark puzzles? It could be laid out in levels with a world map like a Super Mario Brothers game, but each level is a get to the end with no enemies, just obstacles.
Yeah, as someone that runs a site called Shinesparkers, I really don't want a Shinespark puzzle game. That just sounds like torture, and I don't think that'd be good. They'd have to make Shinesparking easier to...
Yeah, you keep joking. So for our listeners, Darren keeps joking about introducing a rite of passage where to work for Shinesparkers, you have to do the secret message infusion, which would mean that none of us work for the site because none of us have done it.
Except one person, but they're not working for the site anymore. So
yes.
With the Shinespark puzzles, I think you'd have to have something that was like a sort of simple Shinespark, and then you build on that Shinespark, and puzzles become a bit more complicated as you go along. But I don't want it to get to, because some Shinespark puzzles are really, really difficult. So I wouldn't want the game to get too difficult, because I don't think that's fun. It has to be achievable.
You would need to work your way up.
Maybe there's some post-game stuff that would be like the really hardcore puzzles. But a puzzle game in terms of like a puzzle challenge kind of game with like blocks and stuff, and then there's like a boss that you face, fight Crocomire, and just make lots of lines and try and defeat him in Puzzle League would be really cool. I'd be down for that one.
Well, since accessibility was a big topic for this episode, we have a question for you guys. What accessibility improvements would you like to see added to Metroid games in the future? You can let us know on Twitter or on Instagram, and we would love to hear your answers, and maybe we'll read it out. All right, well, everybody, thank you so very much for joining us for another episode of the Shinesparkers podcast. It's always great to talk with all of you, Darren and Roy. So happy to get to talk to you guys again, and we will see you next mission.
See you next mission.
See you next mission.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 23
Whoa, hold on a minute.
of the...
No,
oh, wait, we didn't sync up.
No, we didn't sync up.
Oh, crap. Wait, as soon as you said that, I realized that's what we didn't do.
You know what to do, you don't know what to do.
Well, I know what to do. I just forgot to sync it up. All right, let's sync it up. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Now we can do it.
We've got it now.
That's going to be in the bloopers.
The blooper before the podcast even begins. That's amazing. Yeah.
You know what to do. No, apparently you don't know what to do. Alrighty.
You had one job.
One job,
Fine.
Amanda.
Well, at least I'm not reading this. Amanda will introduce episode 23 of the podcast, and welcome. Here we go.
That is something, yeah.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 23 of the Shinesparkers podcast. And of course, welcome Roy and Darren. So happy to have you guys on the show. And we're going to be talking about Metroid Dread this week. And wait, we are not going to give a brief mention to recent. Wait, what recent awards did Metroid Dread win?
Oh yeah, we should probably mention that. Let's start over. So they
That's
what did they
crucial.
Win? Yeah. And it's quite an attractive price point as well. An attractive I can't speak.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and ask next week's question. Let's see. Next episode.
Do we have another question? Oh, we do have a question. Never mind.
Yeah, what accessibility? Yeah. My stomach just growled. I don't know if it caught it up on the mic. That'd be funny if it did.
I will right, boost the audio on that point. So we've got
Please
this really
boost the audio on that. Just be like Amanda's stomach. Amanda needs to eat.
Sounds like a volcano
Amanda's
going off.
Hungry.
This podcast was edited by Darren Kerwin and Giulio Bruschini. with music from Maserati. If you enjoyed the podcast, you could check out more episodes at shinesparkers.net/podcast. We can also be found on social media. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. See you next mission.